Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hanging Out for a Living. Today, I am joined by Dr. Kristine Tenebruso. I hope I pronounced that right.
You got it. Great
Yes,
job.
excellent. Thank you. Physician advocate and founder of ConnectCare MD. So, after more than 30 years in emergency medicine and hospital-based care, Dr. T transitioned from bedside medicine to building a business centered around helping patients and caregivers navigate today's increasingly complex healthcare system with more clarity, confidence, and peace of mind. So, we're going to talk about advocacy, communication, and what it really means to help people feel seen and supported during difficult moments. Thank you, Dr. T, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Teresa, for having me, and thank you to your viewers for tuning in today.
Absolutely. I know how busy you are, so we'll dive right into these questions that we talked about. So you spent more than 30 years in emergency medicine before launching Connect Care MD. What inspired you to make the transition from bedside care to physician advocacy?
Oh man, what a great question. So, really two things, and they were both professional and personal experiences that allowed me and gave me the insight and inspiration. So, personally, it was really about my dad. So, my dad was his care and his medical issues were becoming more complex as he got older. He's a really sharp guy
Mhm.
and he was handling all his medical care wonderfully until one day he wasn't.
Mhm.
Basically, yeah. So I would always follow up with him after appointments. I'd call him and ask him how things went. And I always kind of got the same, like, I'm fine.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think we can all relate to that, right?
definitely.
But he was fine until one day when he wasn't. And the only way I knew this, because he told me he was fine, was that a couple of days later, my mom received a text from their local pharmacy that he had two new medications and they were waiting for pickup.
Ooh,
So she called me, and after talking with my dad, she questioned him a little more, and he said, "Yeah, I don't know, I got to go see a cardiologist too." So she asked me, the daughter doctor, right? Well,
right.
what's going on with your dad? I said, I don't know. So I called him back. I'm like, "What's going on? You told me you were fine." And he said, "I don't know. I don't know. There's something with my heart, but my heart's fine. There's nothing wrong with it." So I was so grateful that my dad allowed me and welcomed me into his appointments. So together we could work with his doctor and keep everything kind of in order,
Mhm.
and make sure that both he and I and my mom, everyone understood what was going on and was literally on the same page. So that was the personal experience, but professionally around the same time, I noticed that the patients I was seeing both in the hospital and in the ED, they were coming in not because they got the flu or they fell and broke a hip like they had maybe decades before, but it was really a worsening of their chronic illness. And it was often preventable. I would read their last appointment chart, their summary. They were supposed to change a medicine, kind of like my dad, right? Supposed to get a
Mhm.
new medicine. Maybe they couldn't get it. Maybe they didn't get it. Maybe they didn't know they needed it.
Right.
And that medical miscommunication landed them in the emergency room and then the hospital. And I thought, man, in my dad's situation, what do people do that don't have a daughter doctor that can go? And then professionally, man, with better communication, maybe this patient wouldn't even need to be here, hanging out in a hallway in the ED for 24 hours
Yeah.
until they could get a bed for definitive care. So that was kind of the turning point. I knew we needed to bridge a medical communication gap in our medical care here in Rochester and in the United States.
Absolutely. So, for someone hearing the term physician advocate for the first time, what does that actually look like in real life for patients and caregivers? I mean, you kind of led into that a little bit, telling us about your personal experience with your dad. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, sure. So it's a pretty simple definition, really. Like it's really a doc in your corner, a physician who's there for you to support you on your journey along medical care. Um, I basically do this in two ways. I can attend medical appointments with patients like I did with my dad, or I can kind of hop into the hospital, bring all that information together, try and help people navigate their care. In the outpatient setting, what that looks like is I talk to the patient ahead of time. I learn about their individual challenges and what purpose they is the appointment coming up. Is it they're not feeling well and they need a new diagnosis, they need some help, or is it their chronic care and they just kind of need an update? I learn about them. I sit side by side with them at that appointment. I do a lot more listening than talking. I listen so the patient can also listen. Meanwhile, I take notes at what's going on. If there's a point at which they need to be supported or heard, I advocate for them, step back once again and let them have that communication with their doctor, and then fill in any important details that may be missing. And then in the hospital, I add on that I look at their record. People in the hospital really need my help more than anything. When they're sick, maybe they're medicated, they're not in a situation to understand complex medical information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and the whole which kind of leads into the next question, but still, the healthcare system, you just talked about how when they're in the hospital and they're not, people are medicated, etc. Even when they're not, the whole healthcare system is so overwhelming and intimidating for so many people, myself included. What
Myself included as a doctor.
There
Yeah.
you
And as a
go.
patient. Yes.
Exactly, right? So, what are some of the biggest challenges you see patients and families facing today?
I think it's twofold. I think it's communication and continuity, right?
Mm.
So gone are the days when we had a doctor that cared for us from birth to death.
Yeah,
Like my older patients remember that time. So we transformed our healthcare system into a much more specialized system. And one patient, say with a heart condition, can have multiple doctors, multiple cardiologists, a primary care doctor. Maybe they have an endocrinologist for their diabetes at the same time, because those two conditions often go together. And it can be really overwhelming. I think patients are challenged by the communication. There's discontinuous, there's like people need dots connected. A
right,
lot of times their care is the medical care is siloed now. There's two local systems, and then there's say the VA, like my dad.
right.
And they may see specialists all in different systems, but they don't necessarily share records or communicate. And so that's a huge challenge for patients. The other is access, right? It's
Right.
really hard to access care now. Primary care doctors are leaving
Yes,
like
they are.
crazy. So that leaves patients to go to urgent care, which further fragments their care, and the ER, which is really a kind of a band-aid approach. What's your problem? How can I fix it? But people aren't about one problem. People are really about their life, who they are, what medical things are going on, and
Sure.
there's interplay. So
Absolutely.
fragmenting care is a huge challenge in our community.
It really, really is. And the way you shared that just gives a really great picture. And so, in wrapping us up here, if there's one piece of advice you wish every patient or caregiver understood before walking into a medical appointment, what would it be?
I think we have to go back to the Boy Scout days, right? Like, not like on my honor, right? But we
Right.
need to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I actually talk about this in the community. Doctors see between 4 and 5 patients an hour now. So that's about 10 minutes a patient. And in that time, they have so much they have to do. And at that last moment, when they're kind of on the way to the next patient, they may say, "What questions do you have?" So don't think about it when you're driving to the doctor, when you're in the waiting room, or when the nurse is taking your blood pressure. Keep a notebook at home dedicated to your care. Think about it ahead of time when your 6-month appointment's coming up, and maybe like you're wondering, do I have allergies? The weather's changing. I'm
Sure.
going to ask my doc next month. It's
Mhm.
not an emergency. You don't need urgent care,
Right.
but you want to ask. So write that down, put a timeline. When did your symptoms start? You hit the ground running when the doc asks that question, and you're really ready to rock and roll and get the answers to the questions to make that 10 minutes the most productive that you can have at that medical appointment. And then finally, Teresa, bring someone with you. Two heads are always better than one, and
Yep.
bringing someone with you is the best thing that you could ever do so that they allow you to listen. They take notes and then they can share those notes with you after. That's kind of what I do. Families are busy. It's really
Yes.
hard for them to add that, and sometimes their schedules don't align. And so Connect Care is kind of here to connect those dots for you. I take those notes and I translate them into plain English language that both the family and the patient get in a timely fashion. So everyone literally is on the same page and kind of partnering in their care so they don't end up in the emergency room like some of my patients did.
Absolutely. And I love that write things down beforehand because that really helps you to maximize the time, that 10 minutes, that precious 10 minutes that you
That's
have
right.
with your doctor. That and it helps you to get the best care possible. So, um, Dr. T, this has been such an important conversation, and I want to thank you for not only sharing your expertise, but also for the compassionate work you're doing through Connect Care MD. So, for those that are watching or listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to continue the conversation with Dr. T. We'll make sure her contact information is included in the description below. And shameless plug. And if you enjoyed this episode of Hanging Out for a Living, I'd love you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could benefit from this conversation. I'll see you all the next time. Thank you again, Dr. T. Bye, everybody.
Yes, Teresa. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a great, healthy day.